All right, we're going to go ahead and get started, and we'll let the rest of the attendees join in on the party as we get going. So, first off, I just wanted to say good afternoon. Let me see if I can put my video up here. Yeah, so you guys can see who's talking. I don't know if you can see that or not. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be a part of the webinar entitled Solutions for Hard to Recycle Materials. So this webinar is being put on by the Tennessee Recycling Coalition in collaboration with the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation and Keep Tennessee Beautiful and TerraCycle. So my name is Caleb Powell, and I'm an environmental scientist for the Office of Policy and Sustainable Practices at TDEC, and I'm also a board member for the Tennessee Recycling Coalition. So I'll be hosting the webinar for us today and for our wonderful speakers. Everyone is muted upon entry to reduce the amount of background noise. So if you have any questions or comments or concerns, anything that's going on, then just feel free to send those in the chat. And I'm going to go ahead and send a chat to everyone right now. You should be seeing that over on your right side of the screen. And so there's a little drop down that you can, if you don't feel comfortable sending your questions to everyone, you can just send them straight to me or just to our panelists, and then but if you'd like, just go ahead and just send those to me, and I'll make sure to ask those to our panelists and our speakers, and we'll get those answered for you. So let's see here. So, and then also there's like a little, if you see on your right side, if you have the little chat box open, you can see a little raise your hand emoji type thing. And if I see anybody that has their hand raised, I can actually go ahead and unmute you if you'd like to physically ask your question to one of our participants or to myself. So feel free to do that. To give an overview of what is going to be covered today, in this webinar we'll be discussing how to get involved with TerraCycle's program for hard to recycle materials. TerraCycle will give an overview of their programs, including the cigarette recycling program. We spoke at a webinar last month about one of our partners, my Green Star partner members that uses the cigarette recycling program, and we got a lot of interest in it. So we thought, what better way than to actually dive deep into the cigarette recycling program. A lot of people didn't realize that you could do that. I actually didn't until the webinar last month. So Edmond McDavis from Keep Tennessee Beautiful is going to provide some insights into the cigarette recycling program that kicked off earlier this year in partnership with TerraCycle, Keep Tennessee Beautiful, and the Tennessee Welcome Centers. So that's pretty exciting. And so listen in on this webinar, and you can find out more about how to implement programs for hard to recycle items in your community. So our presenters have a wealth of knowledge and experience that will help us better understand the challenges and solutions to reducing waste. So without further ado, I'm going to take my face off of here. I'm sure you guys are sick of seeing that. And then I'm going to introduce our first presenter. So Edmond McDavis III, he serves as the Affiliate Services and Training Coordinator for Keep Tennessee Beautiful. And in this position, Edmond travels the state providing direct support to Keep Tennessee Beautiful networks of affiliates, including new director training, continued education, board development, and program development training for the 32 Keep America Beautiful affiliates in the state of Tennessee. He also works with the Keep Tennessee Beautiful's non-affiliate partners to educate them on their core initiatives and encourages them to become affiliates. He also handles all event planning for Keep Tennessee Beautiful and has a certification from Belmont University in this field. He is a certified community environmental professional for Keep Tennessee Beautiful, or Keep America Beautiful. He got that in 2017, and he has been a part of the Keep Tennessee Beautiful team since December of 2006, serving them as the communications coordinator, before officially taking on his current role in 2019. In February of 2020, Edmond also took a role as a national trainer with Keep America Beautiful. He is married to Alexis McDavis. He has a son and a daughter, and he enjoys sports, video games, and spending time with his family and friends. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Edmond.
All right. Can you hear me, Caleb?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, let's get started. Um, Welcome everyone. Good evening to everyone here today. Let's go to this first slide. I'm just a precursor to the main event, which is TerraCycle and Miss Caroline Coffee. Um, we've partnered with TerraCycle on the cigarette litter prevention program starting this year to recycle cigarette butts. But first, I'd like to give you a brief overview about Keep Tennessee Beautiful, if you haven't heard of us, and also the cigarette litter, well, mainly the cigarette litter prevention program. Our mission at Keep Tennessee Beautiful is to educate and inspire Tennesseans to take action every day to improve and beautify their community environment. And as you can see, we have several affiliates across the state. This map here shows where our affiliates are. As you can see, we have a ton of them in East Tennessee and a few in West and some in Middle Tennessee, as well as Keep the Tennessee River Beautiful. These pictures here display, excuse me, some of our past partners in the cigarette litter prevention program. A few big names, as you can see there with Bristol Motor Speedway. We partnered with them a couple of years ago. And if you look in the far, far right corner, you can see a cigarette receptacle. And that picture at the top right is also on the campus of Bristol Motor Speedways. And as you can see, we've strategically placed a cigarette receptacle there. Um, in the bottom left picture, you will see a Tennessee. This is a Tennessee Welcome Center, and in the forefront, you can see a cigarette receptacle. And in the fourth picture, that's on Main Street in Memphis. And in the foreground there on that pole, you can see a cigarette receptacle. So we strategically place these cigarette receptacles on sites of our participants to combat cigarette litter. And so initially, we started this program back in 2015, and during that time, let me go to the next slide here. I think, yeah, we started back in 2015, and since that time, we've received exactly $100,000 in grants from the Cigarette Litter Prevention Program, which is a Keep America Beautiful program. And all of that money, we've returned it back to the state of Tennessee with our partners in different communities, whether it's, as you can see in the prior slide, I'll go back here, at the Bristol Motor Speedway, or either at the Tennessee Welcome Centers or main streets across the state of Tennessee. And the reason why we've chosen these places to participate in is because of the cigarette litter problem that they've had. And so we go in, we do scans. Like we have a area that wants to participate, for example, at the Welcome Centers. We would do scans there to see where cigarette litter is being tossed, and that's how we choose where we want to place our cigarette receptacles. And so then after the cigarette receptacles are placed, we've noticed a reduction, sometimes as high as 55% in cigarette litter at these different sites across the state. But we keep challenging ourselves to always be better. And that's why we have this partnership now with TerraCycle. And so as you can see from this slide, the program has been pretty it has been pretty good before we partnered with TerraCycles. Like I mentioned, like we use all the funds to create to purchase receptacles, get pocket and cup holder ashtrays, and also to produce PSAs and messaging that's aimed at cigarette litter. And during that time, as you can see there in the bottom list of our past partners and stakeholders, we partner with several different notable organizations or even events across the state, which is good. It's making a good dent in cigarette litter. But as I said, we challenged ourselves. How can we make this program better? And so the way that we made this program better now is by partnering with TerraCycle. And so far, just this year alone, the welcome centers have participated in the recycling of cigarette litter, and so far they've collected over 42,900 cigarette butts at last we checked. And I think that I got that number recently from Caroline, maybe a couple of weeks or so ago. And so I'm sure that number is going to continue to go up as more and more cigarette litter is collected. And so with that being said, I'm now going to turn over things to Caroline. But as mentioned, we got these funds, we have these funds, and of course now because of COVID-19, there has been a challenge, like events such as you see here in this picture, where it's an old picture of me at a welcome center passing out the pocket ashtrays, things like that. We still have funds available now, so if there's anyone on this call that is interested in participating this year in receiving receptacles or pocket ashtrays or anything, please put your information in the chat and contact me so that I can possibly get our program in your community. But with that being said, I'm going to, I'm just being the gateway to Caroline, who is the main show. TerraCycle is the main show of this presentation, so that she could further talk about cigarette recycling.
Thanks, Edmond. And we actually had a few questions for you, so we'll go ahead and knock those out before Caroline starts talking. So we had somebody that said, are you having issues with contamination?
Oh yes, that does happen. I know exactly what they mean by that, and that's when let's see if I could go back here. These receptacles, sometimes we have learned that we have to clearly define that these receptacles are for cigarette litter and not for other types of trash. Even though most of them may have like a symbol that shows or a picture that shows that it's for cigarette litter. They have like a cigarette butt. But what we've tried to do is label the receptacles where possible, such as the receptacles like in the bottom right hand. We try to label it so that people know that these receptacles are for cigarette litter and not for normal trash. Or either we've also had situations where people would take the effort to take the lid off and just so they can put their trash in. But what we learned to do is try to offer a trash can and recycling next to the cigarette receptacles so that people can make the proper choice.
Yeah, and there's another question, but I think you basically answered it. Someone asked, this is only for cigarettes, not vape products, correct? And I think you answered that with that. It's just for cigarettes,
yeah.
correct? Yeah.
Correct, yes. All cigarette litter, whether it's cigar tips or Swisher trash or just all types of cigarette litter, yes, tobacco products.
And I don't know if you have these metrics, but we had another question that said, any idea how many cigarettes have been kept out of the landfill or streams with this program?
I don't have that data right in my face, but if I could gather it, but I'm pretty sure that is definitely a lot, because we have hundreds of receptacles across the state now because we've been doing this program since 2015. But no, I don't know that number right offhand, to be honest with you. But I could. Well, we haven't, and then to be honest as well, we haven't like kept a number of the poundage that's been collected. we have scanned the effectiveness of the receptacles and where they're placed. That's what we've tracked over the years. But now, starting since we're working with TerraCycle, we're now, of course, counting. TerraCycle is counting what they receive from the welcome centers that are recycling now.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think Caroline might have some more information about that. So Edmond, thanks so much for what you do, and thanks for getting this information out there. And definitely, if anybody has questions about the program or wants to try to get some information, make sure you write down Edmond's contact information and reach out to him. He's got a lot of good resources with Keep Tennessee Beautiful, and like you said, a lot of people have not been able to use some of their funding because events have been canceled and stuff like that. So if this is something that interests you and you think that would benefit your community, please reach out to Edmond. He'd love to help.
Yes.
All right, next, we've been talking about her, and now I will introduce her. Caroline Coffey. She works for TerraCycle as the Strategic Outreach Associate. And as the Strategic Outreach Associate, she manages the cigarette recycling program and works to develop the public collection network for TerraCycle's national recycling programs. She comes from the finance sector with a degree in veterinary and biomedical sciences. She's a data whiz and zero waste pro, and in her spare time, she loves to garden, surf, and scuba dive. So without further ado, I will pass it over to you, Caroline. And there you go.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for all the wonderful, kind words and introductions. And it is a pleasure to be on this call with everyone today. So thank you again for taking time out of your Thursday or Friday Eve, as I've been affectionately referring to it these days, to join me to learn more about how you can get involved with TerraCycle's free national recycling programs. So as Edmond very aptly mentioned, we've been growing this partnership with Keep Tennessee Beautiful over the last several months, really during the onset of COVID-19, which is just a testament to the wonderful work of Keep Tennessee Beautiful managing to implement this program during an exceptionally challenging time. So yeah, like Edmond mentioned, their welcome centers so far, since they have been recycling with us, have recycled over 43,000 cigarette butts in the last few months, and I'm tracking those metrics as we go through the program. So I only know that as more welcome centers continue to utilize the program, we'll only be able to divert and recycle more cigarette butts. So for those of you who don't know, TerraCycle is a global leader. As far as I know, TerraCycle is the only international recycling company, and our global footprint just keeps growing. So captured here on this slide in dark blue is where you can kind of see our for-profit operations where they have launched TerraCycle as a business. We are a mission-driven business, and so everything we do is in support of our mission. We also have a nonprofit arm, which you can see highlighted in this map in light blue, and then our Loop platform, which if you're not familiar is our milkman model for the modern age. It's our reuse platform. So essentially you order your standard grocery materials online. They come to you in a refillable, reusable tote with all refillable, reusable packaging. So really working to achieve as little waste and zero waste within your lifestyle. So as I mentioned, TerraCycle is a for-profit mission-driven company, and that mission is eliminating the idea of waste. So every business model that we offer is in the spirit of tackling that mission. So I'm not going to go through every single bubble on this slide because I do recognize quite a lot of info, but all really great information, so I encourage you to read. But really want to draw your attention to the three bubbles on the left-hand side of the screen. So essentially we're able to do what we do with over 202 million people that are recycling with us globally, which is a huge impact, and that number only continues to grow. And through the efforts of those 202+ million people, every month we're recycling over 1 million pounds of non-recyclable waste all over the world. And through those efforts and the way these programs are designed, we've been able to donate over $44 million to charities and schools through these recycling efforts. So the global issue of waste is, I think, something we're all, painfully familiar with now. So I'm not going to spend too much time focusing on that, but, this is something that continues to come up in the news and, crossing our paths in our day-to-day, and something that we're all faced with. And zooming in, to one of the smallest pieces of litter, but the world's most littered item, is cigarette butts. And since the 1980s, cigarette butts have accounted for 30 to 40% of all litter found in coastal and urban litter cleanups. Cities spend an astronomical amount of money on litter cleanup. And cigarette butts are oftentimes a large component in that. And you can kind of see a really standout clipping there in the bottom right-hand corner of the city of Philadelphia spends upwards of $48 million a year to address this problem. So, an issue that we're all facing, but something we can all tackle together. So what's really important when it comes to talking about recycling is what determines recyclability. So you may be familiar with this, and there's a lot of different component pieces that attribute to what makes something recyclable. And really what it comes down to is practical access, and most oftentimes that is economics. So you can see this really lovely Venn diagram does a great job of highlighting and explaining what determines what makes something locally recyclable, versus something that's not locally recyclable. So you can see on the green side of the Venn diagram, the cost of logistics and processing for things like aluminum, your clear PET water bottles, glass, paper, when that is less than the value of the material after it's processed, that makes it recyclable, because then your local recycler can, sell those materials back into the supply chain. In the center there are some materials that are accepted depending on where you live. Again, circling back to practical access, because not everyone has these programs available to them in their communities. And then in the orange side of the Venn diagram, you can see that, for these multi-laminate materials, maybe complex closures, different things, small materials, cigarette butts, the logistics and processing is greater than the end value of that material once it's processed. Therefore, it is not locally recyclable. But I will say that all of these materials that you see can be recycled at TerraCycle. So this is the TerraCycle solution. So I'm going to dive deeper into what all of these different pillars look like, but essentially all of our recycling programs are built upon these three core pillars of collect, so where collection is taking place, who our partners are, and how we solve for waste, and then how we promote and drive value to recycling programs. So as I mentioned, the first pillar in any recycling program at TerraCycle is collection, which starts with you, our program partners and participants. And while most of our time today will be focused on speaking about the cigarette recycling program, this slide does a really great job in highlighting all the different ways we can recycle with you and your community. So we have solutions to recycle nearly everything, just a matter of, who's paying for it and where collection is taking place. So how to participate in TerraCycle's cigarette waste recycling program, and really any of our free national recycling programs, looks something like this. So it's really as easy as visiting our website, so TerraCycle.com, and creating a free TerraCycle account. So whoever is going to be leading the efforts in managing your cigarette recycling program, I encourage you to be the individual to sign up for an account, because that will then make the transition of, downloading the labels very easy, and access and all the tracking and reporting that comes with your account as well. So once you've signed up for the cigarette recycling program for free, simply start collecting. So that could be utilizing cigarette receptacles that we sell at TerraCycle, any existing cigarette canisters you have, like Edmond has some pictures of receptacles they have strategically placed around their community, or really any available box. So if it's simply, a local cleanup effort or a drop-off site for folks to bring discarded butts in the cigarette litter to you, any of these are options available to you to aid in the collection process. And then when you're ready to send in a shipment, all you have to do is download a prepaid shipping label from your TerraCycle account, bag and box the butts, slap on the shipping label, and then either schedule a drop-off or a pickup with UPS, as that is the carrier that we use for this free recycling program. And the really awesome thing about our recycling programs, specifically the cigarette recycling program, is that for every pound of cigarette waste we recycle, $1 is donated to Keep America Beautiful. So this helps fund the cigarette litter prevention program. So not only are these materials being diverted and recycled, but also it's a fundraising opportunity, and the dollars raised through this program directly go back into our communities to continue building programming to reduce litter and increase recycling within our communities. So as I mentioned, these are a couple examples of the cigarette receptacles that we sell, but please know that these are not at all a requirement to participate in the free cigarette recycling program. But if you have a budget or you're interested in expanding your infrastructure for this program, these are always an option. So essentially we have the standard receptacle, and then we have receptacles that come in packs of 6. The stickers come with the receptacle with clear messaging around cigarette recycling. But the really cool thing about TerraCycle, we're also able to help you create custom messaging around your program. So if there was a larger campaign or initiative you wanted this to be a part of, we could help you do that through the design of the stickers to really increase awareness, visibility, and engagement with the program. So transition points were thrown out as a really key piece to any successful cigarette recycling program and cigarette litter prevention program because behavior change is really key. So intercepting folks where they might ordinarily flick a butt to then placing in a receptacle where those materials can then be bagged up and then sent to TerraCycle for recycling. So these are just a few examples of where receptacles have been placed within the community and specifically their TerraCycle receptacles. You can see there's some examples of the standard green stickers as well as folks who have gotten really creative with it, and like I said, created these awesome messages and campaigns around their cigarette recycling program to again drive that visibility, awareness, and engagement. And then just in the spirit of free national recycling programs, before I jump into some other pieces of how TerraCycle solves for waste and then how we can promote and add value to your programs, these are other 2 additional great entry points that are both free. They're great public drop-off and community collection recycling programs. So essentially both of these programs come with a free custom branded message bin. So you can see the recycle blades and razors pictured there on the slide, and also the colorful collection bin down a little bit lower on the slide. So we provide these to you to help facilitate recycling wherever area you want to set this up because they are meant to be public locations, so accessible during certain times of the day and the week to the public. But essentially you would facilitate the collection of these materials to have them recycled with us. So the Gillette Razor Local Recycling Solutions Program allows you to recycle all brands of disposable razors and their packaging while fundraising for the nonprofit or school of your choice at the same time. And the Arby's Health and Nutrition Local Recycling Solutions, really you could think about it as anything you could pick up off of over the counter on your local pharmacy shelf. All that packaging can be recycled through this program as well. So really awesome programs that have a fundraising piece, but also are very broad and capture wide streams of waste. And these are materials that I know I certainly use at home. The packaging is unavoidable, so these are common areas that can really bolster and increase your recycling efforts in your community. So in the spirit of that, building off of these 2 local recycling solutions programs, TerraCycle creates networks and communities of collectors, really to create this web of accessibility to recycling for folks anywhere. So it starts with you, community leaders, setting up a location, whether it be for cigarette recycling, razor recycling, health and nutrition packaging, or all 3. And then your location is built with the collection containers to aggregate those materials, and then it really helps to inspire communities to get involved and take action. And that responsibility is really key in keeping our communities beautiful. So there are 2 things that make TerraCycle really unique as a waste management company, and the first piece is how we solve for waste. I'm a scientist through and through, so personally I get really excited to share information on this because I find it to be super wild and interesting how we're actually able to recycle all of these different materials. And that's through an amazing team of industry-leading expertise within research and development, polymer science, materials application specialists. All these folks have been working for over 17, nearly 18 years now to solve the technical recycling puzzles of things like cigarette butts and disposable razors. And this gentleman here on the slide is our Global Vice President for Research and Development, Dr. Ernell Simpson. He's been on the team since TerraCycle from the beginning, and he really is the genius and genesis behind all of these wonderful recycling solutions. So how TerraCycle processes waste can be broken down into these 4 steps. So once you, the collector, have accumulated enough materials to send in a shipment, those shipments are received at one of our local warehouses. So the closest warehouse to me, I'm located in the southern part of New Jersey, about 40 minutes south of our global headquarters in Trenton. The nearest warehouse to me is about 2 miles down the road from our global headquarters, so not too far. All those materials are checked in, they're weighed, you're able to see and track how much you're recycling along the way through the TerraCycle account I mentioned before. And then the materials are aggregated. So it oftentimes takes a very large quantity of materials before it can be processed. So anywhere from a half truckload to a full truckload, which I believe a full truckload is 52 double stacked pallets. So if you think about that in the context of cigarette butts, it takes quite a bit of cigarette butts in order to aggregate and then send off for processing to actually have these materials recycled. All that is taking place in our warehouse. We have collectors all over sending us a multitude of materials, so we're not for want for things to process. And then you can see on the next step, so processing piece, those gray pellets are a great example of what the end result downstream processing looks like for a lot of our plastic materials. So that gray color comes from just the conglomeration of all the different colors, different packaging coming together. And then those pellets are able to be used and reintegrated into the supply chain to make new materials. So you can see that there's a watering can and a flower pot, which are a couple great examples of materials we've made out of these recycled pellets in the past. Now, diving even deeper into things, how cigarettes are recycled is particularly unique because there's a handful of different components that make up a cigarette butt. So like I mentioned, as far as the collection and receiving of materials, it's all, very similar. So once you send those cigarettes to us, they're received at a local warehouse where they're scanned and weighed and prepared for processing. And then the materials are separated. So if you were not aware, the filter in a cigarette is made of a very thinly spun, high-grade plastic polymer called cellulose acetate. And so that material is separated from the organics like the paper, the ash, leftover tobacco. All of those materials are utilized for like industrial composting purposes. So fertilizer for golf courses is most often an application for those materials. And then the filter, like I said, which is made of plastic, is broken down and used in recycled materials like lumber most oftentimes. So it is used to replace sawdust in conventional plastic lumber to extend the life of that material and create things like shipping pallets, park benches, picnic tables, we've done benches, all sorts of things. It's really wild to see that, these cigarette butts that are in the environment are sitting in landfills and not able to be repurposed into something that brings benefit and joy to a community. So how we promote and drive value and awareness to your program is kind of the second way that makes TerraCycle really unique as a waste management company. We have an incredibly robust creative and communications team, so a really strong PR team, an awesome marketing department, and so we all work together to really help drive engagement and awareness in your programs to really help them grow once you get things moving. And these are just a few ways that we provide program support. So specifically for the cigarette recycling program, I would be your best point of contact. So I would be the person facilitating all these different things. Like I said, help your program grow. So we do that. We create, engage, and promote your TerraCycle recycling program through customized press releases, social media support and promotion, communication tools for collectors to really help you socialize these programs with your communities. We have collection tracking and reporting, which I've mentioned, all accessible to you through your TerraCycle account, or, like with the welcome centers, if there are multiple accounts you're tending to, oh, pardon, my kitten, I can aggregate those numbers for you and do a report on those metrics to really help you track and accurately see how much you're recycling. And then collection and recycling units like the cigarette receptacles and those custom cardboard collection bins I mentioned. And then I'm always here to help provide support to you whenever I can, brainstorm new ideas, find new ways to innovate to really continue eliminating the idea of waste. So I've mentioned it before, I'm going to say it again. Visibility, awareness, and engagement are three really critical pieces to the success of any recycling program. So on the left-hand side of this slide, you can see are some examples of the custom collection tools we can create with our team to really help drive awareness and positive engagement, socialize the program, give clear instructions to really make this program as fun and as easy to participate in as possible. And then as your program grows, our PR team can actively promote the cigarette collection in key and local national media outlets through different strategic media and press features. So, highlighting those milestones, whether it be 1 million or 10 million butts recycled, we're happy to work with you to really build a story to make these programs a success. And before I kind of open it up for any Q&A and discussion, I just wanted to share with you 3 case studies that really do a great job of highlighting what growth of the cigarette recycling program can look like with TerraCycle over time. So Keep New Hanover Beautiful, their cigarette recycling program started in the Wilmington, North Carolina area, Keep America Beautiful affiliate, and they've been partnering with us for several years now. And through that, we've been able to release a few different press hits over the last couple of years. They've integrated this program with student volunteers at the university. They've expanded to other local coastal communities in their area, to the Wilmington International Airport. So this program only continues to grow. And to date, they've recycled over 1 million cigarette butts, which is incredible. And the next case study I wanted to share with you is the Maryland Coastal Bays program in Ocean City, Maryland. They just recently actually installed these butt benches. So these benches, you can see pictured here on the slide, are actually made of recycled cellulose acetate filters from cigarettes. They were in custom installation. It's been a huge, media attention for them. It's been in the press. There's been several articles that have been published driving awareness to the world's most littered item in this coastal community. And our coastal communities are very vulnerable. And to date, and they've been in partnership with us for about a little over a year now, and they've recycled over 355,000 cigarette butts. So again, incredible work. And then lastly, this is the #1 collecting city in the program, so you can kind of see just how big these programs have the opportunity to grow. So the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership, as part of the Clean and Outreach program, has been partnering with TerraCycle to recycle cigarette butts in the city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And through the partnership with TerraCycle, through the placement of cigarette receptacles in different areas in the community, as well as a partnership with Block by Block, the city has recycled over 3.5 million cigarettes, which roughly equates to 3,500 pounds of cigarette waste, which again, just thinking about that in raw data is absolutely incredible. So with that, this is my contact information. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Like I said, I'm more than happy to work with you in any way I can, the way that makes the most sense for implementing this program in your community going forward. So with that, let's continue to do beautiful things and keep on recycling. Thanks so much.
Thanks for all that information. That's just really, really amazing. We have actually quite a few questions, so and I actually have some of my own questions actually as well. So the first one is this program open to the public or just nonprofits and municipalities?
Sure. So this program is open to anybody. Anyone can sign up, from individuals in their homes to municipalities, city businesses, casinos, hotels are oftentimes some of our program participants. So there are no restrictions on participating in this program.
Awesome. And then there was another one that was tacked onto that. It said, do you have a listing of collection locations?
So for this program, no, but that said, we do have other programs. So those 2 local recycling solutions programs I mentioned, those do have public location drop-off maps. So essentially, you're able to navigate to the program page and then type in your zip code, and you'll be able to view the nearest public drop-off location to you. So like if you're, an individual at home that maybe couldn't recycle certain materials as an individual through one of TerraCycle's programs, you could do that through these different public drop-off locations.
I see. And didn't you mention that a lot of like industry or people that do that, they'll actually send them in, like mail in the cigarette butts?
Yep, so all of TerraCycle's programs as of right now are mail-based. So essentially the way that the free recycling programs work is that we've partnered with a brand, and they are covering the cost of the shipping, back to TerraCycle, the cost of recycling. So everything is completely free to the consumer to participate in. So that's where, you log in and you create the TerraCycle account. You add the free programs you want to join. So you add the cigarette waste recycling program. And then once you're ready to send in the shipment, usually 10 pounds or greater are the most efficient for this particular program, but every recycling program has different efficiency metrics depending on what the material is. But then, yeah, you just download that prepaid shipping label using any available bag and box that you have. Obviously, the more durable, the better. And then UPS facilitates the shipment back to us for recycling, so it doesn't cost you anything.
Amazing. So this is a pretty cool question. It says, what's the most unique item that TerraCycle collects or has collected?
Sure. So I definitely think cigarette butts are certainly one of the most unique items we collect and recycle. I personally did not know that cigarettes could be recycled prior to joining the TerraCycle team, but it's wild. I mean, razor blades, if you think about it, they're made of, metal, plastic, and rubber, and so those are, anything multi-laminate. We recycle balloons. Anything can technically be recycled. Like I said, just a matter of economics. So we have a variety of solutions to really capture any and all waste streams folks are looking to divert. But yeah, in terms of the free programs, the ones I mentioned are definitely some of the more unique materials that we recycle. Dirty diapers is something else we've done, car seats. So yeah, it's endless and limitless.
Wow. Let's see. All right. So I think these two questions sort of go hand in hand. It says, how can TerraCycle help industry with like hard to recycle items? So I'm guessing what that meant was I'm actually over a program in Tennessee called the Tennessee Green Star Partnership, and it's just an environmental leadership program for manufacturers around the state. And so a lot of times we hear that they have hard to recycle stuff, materials, if you will. And so I guess this question probably goes into that with industry. Do you guys do anything with big manufacturers and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So outside of our free national recycling programs, we have a zero waste box platform. So that's, an even more turnkey solution. It is a paid for solution, but essentially the cost covers the collection container, filling it all the way up to the top with all the materials that are accepted and the shipping back and forth. So we do that in a lot of different spaces for lots of things. PPE largely these days, as you can imagine, has become very popular for, different large scale operations looking to manage that waste. I mean, even prior to the pandemic, manufacturers were using a lot of PPE in their day-to-day operations. But then jumping off of that, we also have a regulated waste division. So anything from fluorescent light tubes to batteries can be recycled through our regulated waste team. And then in addition to that, we also have freight volume solutions. So really for those massive, large-scale industrial, tons of waste that maybe cannot be diverted or recycled locally, we can also manage that as well. So it really ultimately is depending on what you're looking for. We are happy to help you in any and all ways we can.
And I think this one sort of tacks on to that question. It says, has TerraCycle helped any industry get to zero waste? Or get any, and I know that definition is sort of different depending on who you ask, but I know a lot of our partners, say that they're on the pathway to zero waste, but there's, the last 5% is like the hardest to recycle. So.
Certainly, yeah. Well, I would say, we work with some of the largest CPG companies to help push and continue sustainability goals, but one really notable standout partner that we work with is Subaru. So Subaru of America, their manufacturing facility notoriously went zero waste years ago, and I know through partnerships with like the National Park Service and Leave No Trace, there's definitely lots of different pathways and ways we work together cross-functionally with TerraCycle, Subaru, and those other entities to really continue pushing efforts of zero waste and zero landfill.
Definitely. This is a pretty long way. It says, the city of Knoxville piloted the cigarette butt recycling program at our public works complex. Unfortunately, we had to discontinue the program due to the smell of the cigarettes as they waited to be shipped off. Is this a common issue TerraCycle runs into with those involved in the program, and do you have a creative suggestion for avoiding this?
Absolutely. So yes, this comes up from time to time. I think about the nature of collecting, storing, and recycling cigarette butts. It can be a stinky, dirty job. But there's been a handful of different tips and tricks I've learned and the recommendations I've received from other collectors. Basically, you want to store any cigarettes you collect in as durable of a plastic bag as you can. So usually anywhere from like 2 to 4 mil poly bags are pretty good. You can always double bag and triple bag if need be. Obviously, checking for holes and seams, taping up the box seams as well would help to mitigate odor. You can even place some like kind of DIY odor suppressants in the box, like outside of the bag of cigarettes. So, coffee grounds, baking soda. I've heard of collectors shipping the actual cigarette butts themselves inside of, coffee bags to help contain the odor. So there's, a wide array of different approaches to take, and this is a great example of how, I work with folks in strategic outreach to help build these programs. It's kind of like navigating, these potential obstacles to figure out, like, what can we do to tackle this, what may seem like an issue, and turn it into a solution. That way, folks can continue to participate in these programs.
Yeah, and so the rest of that question, I guess, says, our custodian comes at a particular time, so we would not necessarily be able to package the cigarettes at the same time UPS arrives. In addition to that, we empty our cigarette butt collection containers every other day, so oftentimes the butts would sit for a couple days before being able to fill a box for a shipment. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So, and often too, if you have any sort of like large plastic bucket, like Uline, for example, sells these. But just any steel top lid container, if you do foresee storage for any number of days or a week, perhaps, and logistics look different everywhere. So some folks will collect butts and then pack them up all right in one fell swoop and then ship them off. But operations look different. So again, a perfect opportunity for us to work together to figure out what makes the most sense for you.
Yeah, and then we had a comment that said peppermint essential oil is a great odor masker. So
wonderful. So I just learned something new. Well, thank you for whoever made that suggestion.
And then, can I interject for a second here?
Yeah, of course.
Whoever that person is, I'd like them to reach out to me, because maybe this is an opportunity for us at Keep Tennessee Beautiful to provide, like Caroline mentioned, the Uline buckets or whatever. We have a partner that I can't mention right now because they haven't went public yet, but we provided containers for them so that they can store their cigarettes and on the way to TerraCycle. So whoever that person is, if you don't, just send me an email or whatever, or call me, and maybe we could work something out. We could provide the storage to you, and if it's a cost thing or whatever. Like I said, we're trying to funnel as much cigarette litter to TerraCycle as possible because they're funneling funds to KB. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, thanks for that. Edmond, you might be able to answer this. So this is a question that I just had. I really like going to music festivals, and I know that just from experience, cigarette butts and other things like that are massive waste, and I'm sure there's a lot of cigarette butts and other things like that generated at festivals. I didn't know, Bonnaroo's here in Tennessee, and there's some other like small little river festivals in Memphis and in Chattanooga and stuff like that. Have you guys reached out, or do you guys have a presence there for the collection of cigarette butts? I know that they throughout the festivals, I usually go to Bonnaroo each year, they will actually give you some merch if you bring like a bag full of cigarette butts. I didn't know where those are going. Or is that with you guys, or is that going to TerraCycle?
In the past, it hasn't been to TerraCycle, but yeah, I know exactly about the program you're talking about, because in that area, we have an affiliate, and they would, like you said, if you volunteer or whatever, they'll give you, the free tickets, and they want you to go there and sort of, maintain, like you said, the litter situation. We haven't done the program, the TerraCycle program with the Bonnaroo Festival. We have done it with the CMAs in Nashville through our through Metro Beautification there in Nashville. But a lot of our participants that have festivals in their town, like I said, we try to do the three-way setup. For example, in Nashville, they did the receptacles, and they did the trash cans, and the recycling as well, just for regular recycling. So if you get, what we learned is if you give people the option to do right, they will do right in most cases. But yet now, since we have this partnership established with TerraCycle, that is something that we definitely want to pursue, is more opportunities, like you said, for festivals, because people, like we were talking about pre-called. When alcohol comes into play, bad decisions get made. But if we can give them the option, maybe we could cut down on a lot of litter and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. And Caroline, I had one more question. It's sort of like a funny question. You were talking about those benches that were made from the recycled cigarettes. Do you ever have, and this is probably just a dumb question, but is there ever any like issues with the benches smelling like cigarettes?
No, luckily there's not. They go through so much processing, and then you know, the filters themselves are broken down into a powder, and that's mixed with other recycled plastics, usually like HDPE, to give it that strength and resiliency and longevity. Because obviously, you know, this is outdoor furniture; it's meant to last a long time. But no, they do not smell like cigarette butts. Luckily, due to like significant sanitation and like gamma radiation that happens like in the processing of these materials. So yeah, just a really cool conversation piece and a really cool addition to your program efforts.
Yeah, I figured that was the case, but I thought I'd throw that in there.
Hey, I appreciate that, you know.
And we just got another one. It says, are you able to purchase benches made of old cigarette butts to promote the program?
Correct, yes. They're all custom orders, so if that would be something you'd be interested in pursuing, you know, please reach out to me and I can, you know, walk through the details, send you some, you know, more details on like what that looks like. But yes, it's something that we could do if interested.
Amazing. Well, I think that might do it for the questions. Let me check back in the. Yeah, I think that has done it for all of our questions. If you guys have any more questions, you know, you have their Edmond and Caroline's information. Send that their way, or feel free to send it my way, and I can try to get it answered by talking to them. I'd like to go ahead and thank our speakers for taking time out of their schedules to inform us on this important topic. Edmond, thank you so much for what you do, and Caroline, same to you. The world of recycling is, you know, pretty crazy and volatile with markets and stuff like that, but you know, finding innovative solutions is tremendous, and I'm really glad to see that there's work being put on by Keep Tennessee Beautiful, Keep America Beautiful, and definitely TerraCycle to you know, capitalize on these problems. So, and also I'd like to thank everyone that registered and was a part of it. Thank you so much for your questions. Some of the questions that I didn't even think about was able to I think teach everyone in the audience a little bit more about these programs. We plan on having more of these virtual webinars in collaboration with the Tennessee Recycling Coalition and TDEC. So our next one is actually going to be on Tuesday, October 27th at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern, and it's going to be covering at-home composting. So be on the lookout for that registration. I will actually send a follow-up email with the presentation slides, if that's okay with my presenters. And then also the webinar recording, like I was mentioning earlier, will be put on YouTube, and that link will be shared with everyone that was a part of this. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Like I said, my name is Caleb Powell. My email is caleb, C-A-L-E-B, POWELL@tn.gov. Be on the lookout either tomorrow or early next week. I'll be sending out that follow-up email with the slides, and then probably by the end of next week, we will have this on YouTube. So once again, thanks for our speakers. Thanks for being a part of it, and everybody have a great rest of the week.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Thanks.